Speaking of graphic designers, we have one rock star guest who is joining me today. We have Heather Mortimer, who works as a senior graphic designer at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. Heather, first, I just wanted to thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to talk with me today. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Jason?
I'm doing great, thanks. Just getting off a 3 day holiday weekend, so it was nice to catch up on some sleep. I'm sure you could agree.
Absolutely.
And I think as we can all agree, it is a great day at SSAI. Am I correct?
It sure is.
Awesome. Very good. Well, Heather, what I wanted to do during this recording was I wanted to ask you a series of questions in relation to your work that you currently do at SSAI. I think our audience will very much enjoy hearing our conversation for today. My first question I wanted to ask you was, could you please tell the audience about yourself and describe the projects you have worked on at SSAI?
Yeah, sure thing. So I currently support a project called Globe Observer, which is a free mobile app that allows pretty much anyone with a smartphone to contribute ground observations of clouds, mosquito habitats, tree heights, and land cover to the Globe program and NASA's already incredible library of Earth science data. And as a graphic designer on the team, I create a variety of products both to promote the app and to help people develop their skills as volunteer observers. So, for example, we create videos, documents, activities, stuff like that that help to teach people how to collect scientific data. And that not only benefits NASA by providing additional data to work with, but it also benefits the participants who gain a better understanding of what NASA does. And for future STEM professionals, it allows them to practice the skills that they'll need to enter the workforce. So I've been with SSAI for almost 7 years. I joined the company shortly after graduating from University of Maryland, Baltimore County, with an interdisciplinary studies degree focused on science communication. And before joining SSAI, I did a lot of work with museums, zoos and aquariums, and parks. And what I really enjoyed about working in those settings was that you really had to find a way to connect with every visitor you interacted with, regardless of their age, their background, or really even like their level of interest. And so one of the first projects I worked on with Globe Observer was a toolkit for informal educators. And so the toolkit is essentially a collection of resources to help facilitators like museum educators, librarians, and camp counselors develop programming around the app. And so our team alone, we can only reach so many people, but with the help of informal educators, we can reach much bigger audiences. And then the most recent project I worked on was creating a card game that helps people practice their cloud observation skills. And I think we're going to talk about that a little bit later.
Absolutely, Heather. Well, first, I just wanted to say thank you very much for highlighting your experiences in terms of your educational background, what you did before coming to SSAI, and what you currently do at SSAI. It's just absolutely fantastic in terms of the work that you are currently doing right now. And for our audience and viewers who are currently listening to this podcast episode, we definitely have done previous episodes in regards to Globe Observer and especially the Globe Goes to Camp project. So we definitely encourage you all to please check out and subscribe to our YouTube channel right down below this video. So that way you can see more videos in terms of some of our other educators' work with those programs. And just like you said, Heather, we definitely will be talking about your card game a little bit here as well. So we're all going to be very, very excited to hear about that. So Heather, what I wanted to do was transition on to my next question that I had for you, which was you mentioned about your work with Globe Observer. And as the senior graphic designer for NASA Globe Observer, you play a key role in translating complex scientific data into visuals that are not only informative, but also engaging and understandable for the public. How do you see the power of design helping to bridge the gap between science and the community, especially in efforts to address local environmental issues and promote citizen science?
Yeah, so to address this question, I think we should start by talking about one of the most basic forms of scientific visualization, which is a line graph. So for last year's eclipse, we asked participants to collect air temperature data before, during, and after the eclipse to help us understand what happens in our atmosphere when the moon temporarily blocks the sun's energy from reaching the Earth. So now imagine that I gave you temperature data verbally. So, for example, at noon, it was 90.6 degrees. At 12:15, it was 86.2 degrees. At 12:30, it was 86.8 degrees. At 12:45, it was 84.7 degrees, and so on. So you're probably having a hard time remembering all of that information that I just told you. And you're probably having an even harder time making any sort of inferences about what happened during the eclipse. So the reason why that's happening is because you have to both remember all of the information and then you have to kind of start to build a mental map so you can kind of see some patterns that are happening. The Globe Observer app actually automatically generated a line graph as people entered their air temperature data. And what a lot of people saw was the air temperature drop as the eclipse reached totality and then rise again after totality passed. And so a similar thing happens with the diagrams and infographics that I create in my role. We take a ton of information and we turn it into one cohesive image that allows people to make those connections themselves. The other important thing to remember about design is that good design builds trust. So take emails, for example. This is something we probably experience every day. We've essentially trained ourselves to judge whether an email is legitimate or spam, in part based on design quality. So if the spacing is weird or the colors are off or the logo isn't quite right, or maybe is a logo that is very old and we know has been replaced, we might think twice about clicking on the link that's in the email. And so, bringing it back to NASA, NASA's doing this incredible science, and the quality of the design should match the quality of the science. And the reason why that's important is because NASA scientists are helping to address some really big challenges that impact our everyday lives. For example, droughts that affect our food, or things like disasters like floods and wildfires that affect the communities that we live in.
Wow, that's absolutely fantastic, Heather. And I appreciate you breaking down even further in terms of the work that you currently do and some of the important aspects, with graphic design. And I love how you mentioned that you're trying to establish trust. And that's definitely something that's very key and it's very important to any generation, really. It doesn't matter what the generation is, but it's definitely important to build those connections and those relationships with any generation. And yeah, definitely, like you said, in terms of looking at emails, that come through, we at SSAI, definitely take pride in making sure that whether we're communicating internally or also externally, that the emails are very high quality and, there aren't, any concerns in terms of, emails coming across as spam-like. So, we get those from time to time. Sometimes we get spam calls too.
Yep.
But in relation to that, we definitely do, a nice job in terms of, making sure that our audience, understands and benefits as to why the graphics, matter based on your work. So that's just definitely very, very awesome. But Heather, like I said, I appreciate you going deeper into that. Heather, my next question I wanted to ask you was you mentioned briefly earlier in this episode about a new card game that you worked on. So I'm definitely going to be asking you this question. You played a major role in designing and developing NUBE, which is a creative card game to teach people about cloud observation. And my question is, how did you approach designing a product that's both scientifically accurate and engaging for a broad audience? And how does this project reflect SSAI's unique ability to solve challenges through innovation, education, and design?
Yeah, so I have to start by giving all of the credit to my colleague Rosalba Giratano at Langley Research Center for coming up with the original idea for the game and doing most of the initial play testing. But my role was to design the deck and the other supplemental materials, like the box and the instructions, stuff like that. And along the way, I saw some opportunities to incorporate even more scientific content into the game. So the whole premise behind the game is that you're matching cloud types or sky colors in order to get rid of the cards in your hand. And this is actually based on a Globe Observer clouds observation because we're asking people to identify the clouds that they're seeing and report some sky conditions like sky color, which is an indicator of how many aerosols are in the atmosphere. And so I started this process by creating a few different options for the artwork. There was a version that used just photos of clouds, then a version that was sort of hand-drawn looking, that was inspired by some of the elementary globe books, which is a big resource that we use. And then there was a very bold design that was really inspired by similar card games. There's a ton of these the genre game is a card shedding game, and there's a gazillion variations out there, but they're all pretty consistent in that they have like a pretty bold style with, vibrant colors. And so those were the three options that I came up with and presented to the team. And then Rosalba actually reached out to some of the librarians who she had worked with to help with playtesting for input. And they preferred that bold style with very stylized drawings of the clouds and heavy outlines. And so from there, I illustrated each of the cloud types, there are 11 total, in that style. So stratus was probably the most difficult cloud type to illustrate because stratus at different heights, that's stratus, altostratus, and cirrostratus, they all look very similar, sort of like a sheet or a veil. I think there's a lot of stratus clouds outside right now. And so sometimes the best indicator of what type of stratus that you're looking at is actually how the sun looks behind the clouds. So stratus, the low-level stratus, is often very thick and gray, and it might actually completely block out the sun. You might not be able to find the sun in the sky. Altostratus is a bit thinner, and so the cloud looks sort of fuzzy behind altostratus clouds. And then cirrostratus clouds are thin, high clouds made of ice crystals. And so sometimes a halo actually appears around the sun when it's shining through cirrostratus. And so representing the sun is a bit challenging graphically. And that's because we normally represent the sun as a yellow circle with either yellow or orange spikes that go around the outside. And everyone recognizes it's sort of the universal symbol for the sun. But that's not really how the sun looks when it's shining through stratus clouds. And I want to be very clear that I mean in pictures. I do not go around staring at the sun, and neither should anyone else. So I mean through pictures. But we tried a few different versions of stratus clouds. And the first version was a white circle with a black outline, and then a bigger black circle, black outline circle to represent the halo. And the reason why I had done that is because that's the style that all of the other cloud types are in. It is some sort of white or gray fill with a black outline. And unfortunately, that just did not work. No one really recognized that it was supposed to be the sun. They just thought there was a random circle on the card or that it was some design, but it wasn't really coming across as the sun. So I tried a few other options and, would kind of just approach people, both at work and at home, just like, what do you think this is? Like, what's on this card? And finally, the version that worked was a white circle with no outline and then a white halo. And that most people immediately recognized as the sun behind a cloud. In addition to the cloud cards, there are special cards. The original version of the game had wild cards and action cards. The action cards were where the charades elements came in. So you had to either move like a cloud, describe a cloud, or sketch a cloud, or you would take some sort of penalty. So skip, draw two, or draw four. And so as I was thinking about how to design these cards and what I wanted them to look like, I realized that we had a chance to add a little bit more science content to those special cards. So this is when the wild cards became obscurations. So obscurations are different atmospheric conditions that block your view of the sky. And so when you're doing a cloud observation in the Globe Observer app, you can actually report those and say, I can't see the clouds, so I cannot tell you what type of clouds there are because there is something that's blocking my view. In the game, obscurations are wild, and the next player has to draw 2 cards. So there are 8 unique obscuration cards in the deck, and that is smoke, haze, dust, sand, sea spray, volcanic ash, heavy snow, and heavy rain. And there's 1 copy of each. We also gave the clouds that produce precipitation, so that's cumulonimbus and nimbostratus, special effects. So cumulonimbus clouds are the ones that produce those intense thunderstorms. And in the past, you may have heard the saying, when thunder roars, go indoors. And that's because they're quite dangerous. And so we made the cumulonimbus cards reverse cards, because if you're going outside to observe the clouds and you hear thunder, you should turn right around and go back inside because you don't want to be outside during a thunderstorm. And then for the nimbostratus clouds, they produce a steady drizzle. It can just go on like all day. And so you might not want to observe the clouds at all if you have some nimbostratus clouds. And so we made that card into a skip card, and that's the special effect that one got. And then those action cards became mystery cards. And the main thing behind that is that sometimes you just need some help from your friends to figure out what a cloud is. It takes a lot of practice to build your cloud observation skills. And at first, sometimes it helps to have someone else to kind of think things through with. And so the next player with a cloud card in their hand picks one, and without revealing it to anyone else, they provide hints using the action on the card. And it's the same actions as before. It's move, sketch, or describe. And then the first player who guesses correctly gets to go next. So it has a little bit of a different dynamic than the old action cards. And then in playtesting, I noticed that sometimes we forgot what direction we were playing in. So when you play those cumulonimbus cards, that's a reverse card. And so sometimes you're changing direction over and over again. And so I wanted to create a direction tracker. And the direction tracker has a hurricane on either side of the card. And the reason why I chose a hurricane is because hurricanes actually spin in different directions depending on the hemisphere they're in. And that's due to the Coriolis effect. So in the northern hemisphere, hurricanes spin counterclockwise. And in the southern hemisphere, they spin clockwise. And I think that's what I really love about the game NUBE, is that it's not just a card game with pictures of clouds. There's actually some scientific concepts built into the actual gameplay. And that's something that I think can really only come from scientists, educators, and designers working together.
Wow, Heather, that's absolutely incredible. I'm just, very fascinated by this game. Just in terms of all of these different types of elements that came with that game, that's something I want to play. I'm very excited as soon as it comes out live. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Heather, is that game like coming out on June 5th? Is that correct?
So the files for you to create your own deck are already out on our website at observer.globe.gov/nube game. And so you can print your own cards and print a box to put the cards in. And then we'll be coming out with some extended instructions on June 1st.
That's fantastic to hear, Heather. And again, for our audience and viewers who are curious and want to learn more and see the NUBE cards at first, we definitely will be providing links for you all to check this cool game out in the YouTube description of this video. So please definitely, again, click on the links at the bottom of this video for you to be able to check this out. And please stay tuned for additional, instructions and like another video just highlighting this game even further in June. So we're very, very excited to highlight that. So Heather, again, I just really appreciate you going super in depth in terms of that game. And just as a side note, just out of curiosity, how long did that game with like all the testing and everything that you did with it, how long did that take?
Yeah, it's probably been about 2 months that I've been working on it. Of course, with lots of other projects thrown in. So this was only, part of my time. And then we had some pauses waiting for getting people together to play tests. But I would say overall about 2 months. And that's
Gotcha.
not including all of the development and play testing that happened before I was involved.
Absolutely. Well, I was going to say that's definitely, very cool to hear because, yeah, depending upon, what it is that you're doing, it does take time to do. So, whenever you think of a cool, innovative idea like you and your team did, it definitely takes some time to work on. So, but I just wanted to, as a side note, congratulate you and your team for, getting this out there and, getting this live. And, we can't wait to hear more in June.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And Heather, I wanted to transition on to my final question that I wanted to ask you for today. And this is a fun question, just as a side note. But the question was, you spoke about many different cloud types. And if you could pick any cloud type to describe your personality during the NUBE game development, would you be a fluffy cumulus, a mysterious stratus, or a dramatic cumulonimbus, or maybe another cloud type? And why would you identify as that particular cloud type?
Yeah, so this is probably going to sound a little bit basic, but I have to say cumulus. So cumulus clouds are the ones where, you look up and you see shapes like, oh, that one's a dragon eating a cupcake. And so I really identify with that. They're also low-level clouds. Clouds, there's three different, they're categorized by height. You have low, middle level, and high clouds. They're a low-level cloud, and I'd like to think that I was pretty down to earth during the development of the game. And then we also often call them fair weather clouds. And this was a really fun project to work on, so there was no storming going on or anything like that.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear, Heather. And, like I said, I appreciate you explaining that even further in terms of, that fun question. So I don't know what cloud type I would be. I think I'd have to think about that a little bit further, do a little bit more research because there's so many different cloud types, like you mentioned. So
Yes.
I'll definitely have to get back to you in terms of, my cloud type, and might be cool for our, audience and viewers to explore, what their cloud type is as well. So we're definitely very excited to hear from our audience and viewers about that. And With that, Heather, again, I just wanted to thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to talk with me today. You are truly a rock star who is really making an impact and a difference globally, and everybody around the world is going to continue to be fascinated by the great work that you and your team are currently doing. Please definitely keep us informed in terms of continued advancements that come later on in the future. And again, we are very excited to highlight even more about the NUBE card game. And, like I said, we can't wait to highlight future discoveries that come.
Thanks so much, Jason.